frontier is defined as uncharted territory by land or ocean. Those who chart that territory tell a story. The past illustrates the blueprint for the present, how things are and how they've evolved. From land to water, we are challenged to border that new frontier, a frontier the outdoorsman knows like no other. Author Gary Lewis works his way along that edge of where discoveries, failures, and achievements have written the story of the sportsman.
Yes! Yes!
From state to state, continent to continent, the stories told create the foundation of the present, and they lay the framework for the future. Through the muzzle fire and on the stone are stories from the edge.
Water is the most important thing as far as Indians are concerned, 'cause that's life.
The past is written, the present is here, and this is Frontier Unlimited. The Dalles. It was the end of the Oregon Trail, the edge of the frontier in the 1840s and the 1850s. And now the river is tamed by dams. But there is still fish in the river that were there before the dams were built. We're talking sturgeon that are over 100 years old.
They finally admitted that the fishery's huge, and it doubled in 2012 from 10, and then it doubled again in 16. But the other thing that's helping is the sea lions aren't here, and that's making it better for us. And the other thing that is, last year we had 400 pelicans. This year we have about 20. So I can get bait fast and be back in the water fishing. Earlier in the year we had that high water. It was even a little dirty here, and it was way high. We had to fish down here. It's tough going. Hooking 6 or 8 a day instead of 10 or 20.
They watched the calendar and picked a day in early August, called Christy Titus.
Good morning.
You've seen her at Cabela's stores and on TV. She is an old friend of Frontier Unlimited. Lewis, Rodney, and Greg have been chasing these sturgeon for a few years, but no one knows how to catch the big fish at the Dalles like Greg Gustafson. Rodney Smith from Sandy, Oregon, is a fishing, hunting, adventurer junkie, and he found a kindred spirit in Greg Gustafson, who lives in the hills outside of the Dalles.
Part of what we do is we trim the baits down a little bit to make sure that we reduce the drag on the bait, and so the tail will catch quite a bit of water in while we're presenting it, and so we try and trim that back.
So it's going to be 106 degrees by 1 o'clock today, and we're starting kind of early. It's about 7 in the morning now. So we're going to pop out some old tackle that used to belong to Grandpa.
Looking for the exact little slot that I want to fish.
Yeah.
Just a little slot in the river.
I have a plumbing injury, an old plumbing injury I got to protect with the gloves, and since I can't just wear one, I got to put one on the other side. Plus it just makes sense because you got this bait that we're putting on. We don't want to foul it too much with the human scent.
So that scent trail will continue on down the bottom. Even when we leave, five fish come back, we'll be having those fish still coming from earlier.
And for scent, we're using what to fish with your shad?
Shad, fresh shad we caught yesterday.
The shad actually travel up the river by the hundreds of thousands, and they have a fish ladder here, but not all the shad go up the fish ladder. They'll try and actually go up the spillways, and they get whacked and concussed. And so literally, Greg goes around with a net, and they're spinning around in a circle, knocked out on top of the surface, and the seagulls come down and eat them, and the pelicans, and Greg's in there trying to get them before the pelicans eat them. And so the bite pattern is they actually suck it in, spit it out, suck it in, spit it out, and you have to time your hook set while it's actually inside of his mouth to get a good hook set. And like here.
Here we go.
All right.
Set the hook on this.
Here,
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 get over here. Over here. Jerk, scrap and jerk. Jerk a couple times.
I got it, yeah.
Here, Rodney. Rodney. Reels go here. Okay, bait goes to this side.
It's still going.
Anchors in, please.
Oh, it jumped! It jumped! Oh!
All the ropes clear. We're already on the way. If they get back too far behind us, they'll get in the rocks. So, and then they have a good chance of breaking us off. Real fast, keep tight. If you point that at the fish, it won't pop out on you and scare you to death.
Fish on!
Unless we get them tired.
This whole river bottom is just filled with like little spires and little bluffs and stuff that come up underneath the bottom of the water. We can't see them, but they're all down there. And these fish wrap around those things. They know how to play this game.
They've been caught a few hundred times.
Well, when you consider they're 200 years old, yeah, that gives them the opportunity to be caught hundreds of times.
He's like running now.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, don't let him do that.
Okay, yeah. Well,
You will hate what comes next.
yeah, just don't let go.
Yeah, don't let go of
Oh,
the
I
rod.
can see
There
him.
he is.
There he is. Yeah. And there he goes.
Okay, I want you to stand up and come to the middle of the boat right here,
Okay.
because it's going to be a lot easier.
Wow. What a beast. What a beast.
He's a little green right now.
That means that he still has a lot of energy.
Okay, somebody take the rod so she can get in the picture. Okay, I want your left hand. Yep, you got it.
Kind of.
Okay, other hand, grab the line.
Okay.
This one's got sharp spines.
Yeah, he does.
Most
He's
of these
really
up here
sharp.
don't.
What is that from?
You slide forward a little bit. That's just their armor.
How big is this one?
You got a good hold of them?
I've got the hook out now.
Okay, see where he is. Almost 8?
Almost 8.
Sweet. Look at how much longer this end of the
Wow.
tail is than the other.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
exactly like a shark.
It's exactly like a shark, and their mouth inside is completely smooth. There's no
See the
teeth.
little spots on his nose, Chrissy?
Yeah.
Those are the sensors that they eat with.
The little
Those actually emit radio frequencies. They can sense when fish are dead or dying. It's just like a rock.
You can sharpen fish hooks on that. This fish is probably 75 or 80 years old.
What a great thing to be able to experience that fish and then turn it loose. Hey,
Chrissy, well done.
Thank you, guys.
Outstanding.
Greg knows this part of the river really well,
That was incredible.
and he's just a pro at this.
You have to have a technique
Yeah.
of going back into the boat,
Right.
using everything to your advantage.
And Rodney and Greg just work really well together on these things. It's angler management, you know, and getting these fish under control quickly. Well, the first time you caught a sturgeon, you landed it in 20 minutes. I remember that very well, and you landed this one in 11 minutes. It doesn't have to take that long if you understand the dynamics of the river and what's going on, and it's because they know what's going on here. That thing's 80 years old, and that could, if it had the chance, it could whale any one of us really easily.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's why I like to get that hook out of there so that you don't go down with it.
Yeah. I don't want to go down with the fish.
No.
How far are they in the water? How deep are they?
This could be 15 feet deep where we're hooking them at. Good.
Nice work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This thing is a monster. I can't budge it. Time to get a pretty good punch in them right off the bat. Oh, rock. Back it off, back it off, back it off, back it off. You just went into the rocks. There's spires down there, and they can wrap around those things. So you got to get the rod up high, and then we're going to circle the fish. See, Greg's watching all the time, and we got a pretty good idea. If we go this way, Rodney up high like this, we could pop the line off the rocks. On rocks.
Drive underneath your line, Rodney, and go way out towards Washington. The rod went limp. When she popped off the rocks, we're back on the fish. Be careful now, don't break it, because we got rocks. We got a few.
Is he running it?
I think he broke.
Oh, it broke.
Woo!
That's the
Oh yeah.
into the rocks and frayed. Just smoked it. 80-pound line, and I use the thickest line they make.
Yeah.
Because I don't care about thin and
me a little line.
current resistance. I want thick for those rocks.
Oh boy.
So Christy, that's the process for when we're in the rocks. It's a bit of a show.
So we're gonna set that rod up here and go with two for a sec. The two bigger rods. They're all 80-pound, but that rod's a little on the light side. That was a big fish, 9 or 10 for sure.
That's
They
so
go up-
disappointing.
When they go above our anchor, they're 9 or 10 feet.
Ah.
We got fish to the boat now. It should be really good, one after the other.
These fish they're after are older than Grandpa. Heck, Grandpa might have caught this very fish 60 years ago.
Gary and I came up with an idea. His grandfather, as well as mine, both were fishermen, and they fished for sturgeon on the Columbia River. And so one of the things is that even when Lewis and Clark and the pioneers first settled, the sturgeon were used as a food source. And so initially, because of their size, you've seen how big, Gary just lost that 10-footer. With the size of them, they used to actually fish with a piece of rope, a large hook, and a mule team. And so you would have 4 mules on the riverbank. They would hook a sturgeon, and then, and those mule teams would pull the sturgeons out. The only challenge is every now and again they would get a sturgeon that was too big, and it would pull the mules in backwards and drown them.
So you think about a dozen mules being pulled into the water, what would that do to your bank balance?
Wow.
Your financial stability?
So in the late 1800s, they actually developed more of a sport fishing tackle. So instead of just a rope and mules, now we're actually going to put them on a rod and reel.
Gary.
And so,
Everybody,
You're up, Gary.
get that rod out of there. Get that rod.
I'm just staying out of the way right now. This is the go time. Lots of rods in the water. We got to get free for the sturgeon, and I'm out of the way. That's it.
This big boy sucked down the whole shad.
pretty fun when using
Yeah.
Pyke.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. You know, most of the fish.
There we go.
Another one.
Broke the leader that time.
Did we see rocks that time?
No.
Right at the knot.
Yeah.
Woo, these fish are really have a knack at shaking fishermen.
Yeah, here we're fishing for sturgeon that are, as old as these fishing rods that we're using. My grandpa could have fished for this same fish
Exactly.
60 years ago. My grandpa didn't break the rod on one of these fish, but maybe I can.
Boom! Nice.
I know.
What do you call that?
So when sport fishing developed, Christy, in the late 1800s, they started trying to figure out what to use for tackle. And so they started with the bamboo rods. And so you've got an 8-sided octagon bamboo rod. They even made collapsible ones. And so the unique part about bamboo is that it bends. And so with these big fish, they actually designed this specific rod with 2 eyes in the middle. So as it bends for 45 minutes this way, you can then move your reel seat, turn it around, and then bend the rod back again the other direction.
You can see the evolution of the reels, and they're all superb examples of craftsmanship for their time. Oh, look at it right here. Right here at the boat.
Gary, you move the middle of the boat. And I'll grab it.
It's so far back there.
I'll see if I can get it with my hand.
Okay. Look how far down in the mouth.
Again, fish with great spines. Usually their
Yeah.
things are all wore out from being up here where
Yeah.
they just scour along the bottom. And
How big is it?
tail, keep going forward. Right there. 6?
Yep, right on 6. Sweet.
Nice work. Super fast.
You know, you gotta
That
say,
was fast.
how grateful, that for a grandpa that takes you fishing. Gets you started on this.
Oh yeah.
Fish on.
I don't know. Yeah, still there, right there. Oh, perfect! Oh, that's so sweet. This rod has not caught a fish for probably 60 years. Grandpa's old casting rod. And here we are on the Columbia with it. And I was really hoping I wouldn't catch a super big one like I just caught. We're using barbless hooks, so this all goes very fast. And that fish is unhooked. There is a beautiful little sturgeon with sharp scoots on Grandpa's old rod. Thanks, Rodney. Thanks, Greg, for making this possible. And thanks, Grandpa, for taking me fishing when I was a little kid. Okay, this is for Rodney's grandpa. This is a different rod of using the same reel, same bait. Probably 60, 70 years since this rod was fishing on the Columbia.
Oh, he's still on there!
Yeah, you gotta land the fish.
Still on!
You gotta hand line him in so we know. Get the rod back. Perfect.
Woohoo!
That's for your grandpa. Nice. I bet your grandpa would love this one. Oh no.
When it was Christy's turn, they put the wooden reel into play. This was a marvel of engineering in 1890.
Hopefully the fish I catch will be little, so it doesn't break everything. I don't want to break it.
You know, that's gonna be your drag, is
My
your
hand.
hand on that reel.
Oh geez.
There you go. Good girl. Nice.
Wow, look at that.
Look at that. It's all right.
Oh, that's the best.
I'm a little nervous because I don't know what to do with my hand, and I don't want to lose a finger either.
This reel probably hasn't had a fish on it since 1900. Yeah, 1890.
Why not test it out? I mean, really. Somebody spent a lot of time carving this. Oh, I can see him!
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
big fish! Oh, look at it! Look at it! Look
Oh,
at it!
sweet.
I am so excited. That's great. Oh! 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 Oh!
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Oh yeah, Gary.
Outstanding.
Barely.
Mwah.
There you go.
Kruger, look at Mama's guy.
He's like, what the heck? There we go. Right here, huh? Already. Pick it up and jerk as soon as you get the drag forward. Drag forward.
Oh, pound it. Oh, strong. Shoot. Oh, boom.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, look
Huge.
at that bend.
Huge!
I'm fighting the biggest fish. Oh, no!
Oh my God, you look like a shark! Oh my God!
Yes!
That was awesome!
Wow! It's a great white shark! Man, I've seen him jump before, but he coming out, he looked like a whale.
So Gary, how I knew that was a huge one was when you set the hook and lifted it up,
He didn't move.
it didn't move.
I haven't been to the gym for 6 days. Good thing. Man. What a brute. Ah, If he wraps around that anchor, we're done with this fish. Unless Greg can pull the magic out of his hat like he does so often.
Gary, he's clear.
He's clear? Okay. When they hit the rocks, you feel the line just go bap, 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 and you can feel it vibration all the way down to your fingertips. Oh, yeah. Look at that tail. Oh, my goodness. Oh, what? It's a whale.
Okay. Oh,
That is a monster ball.
people.
Some 10-1.
Whoa!
10-foot 1. Gary, nice work. Thank you. It could be 10-3, but. Easy on to him, Gary.
Yep.
Try to switch your space to the other end.
Okay.
That is just a massive fish.
We're gonna turn him over.
Okay.
Okay. Bye, boy. Shoot! Oh, man. Woo!
Get a picture of this.
That might be the biggest fish I've ever caught. I don't know, it's right there anyway. I mean, if I caught a bigger one, it was right here with Greg.
When it came out of the water, I about died.
I know.
Like its mouth looked like this white bucket. Where's
Yeah.
the white bucket at? Like coming out of the water was unbelievable.
That fish that we just caught is as old as that reel that Rodney just gave you, that wooden reel.
Alongside the boat, that big one went well over 10 feet. Call it 80 years old. Call it 90 years old. Call it 100. Call it a fish for Grandpa.
It's just, I've been drinking so much coffee, my chest hair has just been exploding.
God, you need him in my sunglasses.
Oh, no, let it run, let it run.
Something come off this reel. Grab
Oh my God.
Oh,
What
get
did we
the
lose
nut
our
on.
breath?
Hurry!
That goes on the other